Well, I call Skype in person in online business. It's sometimes about as in person as we can get. Hey.
Yeah, isn't it great to be a woman in business at this time with this amazing technology for stuff like this?
It really is. Yeah, totally agree.
I love it. I love it. So cool. Well, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. I am seriously so honored to have a guru such as you on my podcast. So thanks for saying yes. Very grateful.
Oh, you're welcome. Always up for a chat and spreading the word.
Awesome. So what I'll do, Alexx, is I'll do the give you an intro in my intro that I'll record after the episode because I quite like to give a few teasers of what's to come. So we'll just crack straight into the interview now, which is good because sometimes it's a bit stressful. I don't know how you find it, but going through the intro of a guest when they're listening always makes me feel a bit more.
Oh, yeah, no. And it just feels a little bit fake. And there's something about I never do it myself. No.
And you know when podcasters read off a bio, I find that so boring.
Oh, that's even worse. Oh, my God. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're scratching that bit and we'll get straight into it. So the first question I like to start off with is a bit of an icebreaker is what did Alexxstuart have for breakfast? So are you happy to start there?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. And then we'll just really go with the flow. But what I'd be really wanting to start with, Alexx, is finding out your story of how you came to be so interested in this area and how you've come on to be such an educator in this field, and then just kind of flow from there.
Yeah, sure. Easy.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We'll just make a note of time. Okay. Welcome, Alexx. It's so cool to have you here on the Primal Alternative podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Helen. It's a pleasure.
It's really, really cool that you're here. Now, before we dive into the interview and find out all about you and what you have to share, can you tell us what you had for breakfast?
Yes, I can. Actually, it was a bit of a funny morning this morning because I had a night out with the girls last night. We went and saw Incognito at the Basement, showing my age there, but literally everyone in the audience was between 39 and 50. So I woke up a little bit later this morning and it was a bit of a rush to get everything ready. Children, you know how it is. Mm-hmm. And so I had a shot of my Young Living Ninja Red because that is just like a little antioxidant boost. Then I make this smoothie every 2 days. That's a green smoothie. So the second day it just sits in the fridge and it's ready to grab. And this one was made with cucumber, mango and mint, a little bit of avocado. And so I had those two things. And then because it was podcasting back to back from 9:30 until 2:00 this afternoon, sometimes me interviewing or being interviewed, there's two of each today, I boiled a couple of eggs between two of the shows and one of them cooled down just before we chatted. And so I had my little boiled egg as well. So that'll keep me right as rain for a few hours. And I'm not stressed or anything. It's definitely not so busy that I feel like I didn't have time to eat. But just, some days food's not always the most important thing in my day. And our human bodies are amazingly enough fine to just skip the odd meal, and it's actually good for us. So I don't stress too much about breakfast if it's one of those mornings where there's other things that are priorities. Just make sure I have some good nutrients and then get some good fats in there at some point in the start of the morning.
And it's so easy, isn't it? Just to have a couple of boiled eggs on the go, on hand, for an easy snack.
Oh, they're great. Exactly.
Too easy. Now, Alexx, can you tell us about your journey and what really motivated you to create your amazing website and become such an empowering educator in this field?
I honestly believe it chose me. I've always been a gung-ho person when I garner information, always, since I was small. My nickname at school was Dr. Alexx. And so there was always this curiosity that I had about finding good things and sharing them with people. And so, unfortunately, the first part of my career, that became finding good cosmetics and perfumes and sharing those with people. So people would always come to me and I'd say, oh, you need to get that one, you need to get that color, and that one's going to match your skin, and all those sorts of things. But of course, it was packed with weirdo fakeness and harmful chemicals. But I didn't know that back then. All I did know was that I was a frequent sufferer of migraines, and primarily due to the food I was eating, I was a frequent sufferer of tonsillitis. And by frequent, I mean 4 or 5 times a year on antibiotics, and with migraines probably towards the end of having migraines in my mid to late 20s, it was up to about once a week. So really debilitating stuff. And the first wave of realization that I had was when it was actually tonsillitis first. The migraine realization was in retrospect. So believe it or not, as an intelligent 13 years of private school, honours degree, university education, I did not connect the fact that as soon as I left the fragrance and beauty industry, I no longer had migraines. Never made the connection. Literally just said to myself, gosh, I haven't had migraine for a while. Left it there.
What a coincidence.
So just that, I know, such a lack of critical thinking. It blows my mind. And we're so many people are there in so many different things. And I still experience moments of, what? Why didn't I think of that? Now. So I think the sooner we realize we can't know everything and that we've just got to operate our best from the area that we're at currently in our lives and what we know at that point, then that's all we can do. And so I started to realize with removing gluten from my diet, because it turns out that was an extremely inflammatory food for me, I stopped having tonsillitis, or literally just stopped. I've had it twice in 14 years compared to 4 or 5 times a year. So, I mean, you do the maths on that as an improvement. And so sort of really started to ramp things up for myself, though, when my son was born, and I was conscious of going a bit more natural and trying to find greener brands in home care. And I had been for a couple of years before he was born. But when he was born, my critical thinking just kicked in. It was that protective mama instinct of nothing shall be done to harm this, pure and beautiful little being. And I just had a moment of realization in the supermarket one day, thinking, I make his purees, and of course I'm putting them in plastic ice cube trays to preserve them in the freezer. I can come to that later. But I wanted some emergency options, and I thought, I'll go to the supermarket and I'll just see what I can find that, if we've got a long trip to the farm, because Ollie's mum lives on a farm down south, or something like that, or the airplane visiting my family overseas, then I needed a few options. And I was just horrified. I was horrified that there was fruit put into savoury meals, like sugar just ending up everywhere. Not that there's anything wrong with fruit, but it doesn't belong in bolognese. This sweetening of the palate from such a tiny age. The thickeners and stabilizers that were in custards, when I knew my grandmother's custard just had, milk, sugar, eggs, and vanilla bean. I could go on and on, but it was a moment in that supermarket on that day where I thought, we really don't know what's in these products. We have no idea. We're buying things because of what's written on the front to appease us about the life we have and the things we want to tell ourselves, like healthy or all natural. But the real truth was in the ingredients lists. And for the first time in my life, when it came to like baby food, I had already been looking at ingredients in adult food because of the wheat avoidance and gluten avoidance. But in baby food, I saw it. And then I started to look at our personal care and thought, whoa. I mean, I knew I wanted to get him Weleda because I knew that was a healthful brand when he was first born. But I wasn't thinking about myself. I wasn't thinking about my husband's deodorant. We weren't thinking about what our couch was made from. We weren't thinking about anything else, just a few basics and mainly focused on baby. And so it was about 6 months of reading about 20 books that I could get my hands on, just poring over everything I could find. And then a girlfriend giving me an incredible book a few months later called Slow Death by Rubber Duck, which was published in late 2009. And the scientists that produced that did experiments on themselves, the befores and afters of mercury, phthalates, plastics, and a few other things. And it really was just a moment where you saw so directly from their testing prior, post, and then a month afterwards to see how long it took to leave the body, just how much the things that were in our everyday things that we think are safe and assume have been extensively tested, turns out they're really, really not. And they can have some profound, lasting effects on our health, our intergenerational health in terms of epigenetics and what gets passed on, and our planet. And once I had that aha, that it wasn't just about me and my family or my baby being okay and us not mattering, or it was about such a big picture thing, and it kind of hurt my brain. But the freeing aspect of thinking big picture was that I went into making changes with this beautiful empowerment that I was also helping change the world. And for me, that was something that made change stick and made it important and made it prioritizable and made it understandable to people around me, to understandable to my dad, who I grew up, walking with him and him picking up bits of plastic off the sidewalk and putting them into a bag. But he had never made the connection between other bits of his personal care and planetary health. But because I knew he cared about the planet, I could go in there with that for him to help him realize that that was important. And it seemed like this big picture thinking was something that was not only helping me make the changes, but helped it resonate with other people as well. And so when I then made the decision to take all of my enthusiasm and desire to learn things and teach things that I've had in both the hospitality industry and beauty industry so far, I wanted to bring that to a hobby at first, as so many blogs start, in educating and raising awareness on just how unsafe so much of what we eat and put on ourselves and surround ourselves with in our home is. And that's how Low Tox Life started. And the words Low Tox, it just spins me out to see it used as reference by everybody now. Were literally founded in my apartment in Rose Bay with a newborn on my lap, chatting to my sister and brainstorming about what I wanted to call this thing. And originally it was called Real Food, Low Tox Living, but then, of course, food very much comes under low tox living and living a low tox life. So I ditched the real food thing because it's comprehensive within low tox life. And I just knew I didn't want any words that would evoke a sense of this is this thing that you have to be perfect at, and it's black and white, and either you've succeeded or you've failed, and there's a place where you arrive where you're done, because it's not the case. We're always going to walk past a car driving along and take in exhaust. We're always going to have our son on a play date and be offered something in a plastic cup. We're always going to have a time in our life where we need a hospital IV, and these are out of our control. And so to create something that made people feel like doing our best with what we've got at home in our day-to-day choices where we do have control is enough. And it does cause a powerful enough ripple effect to create incredible change. And we can rest assured that it's much better to start anywhere than to not do anything at all because we feel like it's all just too big, So Low Tox Life was born because it was not no tox or non-toxic, or the worst one, chemical free, which, water is a chemical. Like, there's so many things. Like, we are made of chemicals, and I just don't like that whole thing either. No. So, yeah.
I love it. And the thing I love the most about you, Alexx, is that you've got this big picture and but you make it so doable and sustainable. And I love how your part of your message is that, we never arrive. You never right. That's me. I'm low tox. That's ticked off. Reach this, the pinnacle of my low tox journey, because it's a daily practice, isn't it? It's the same with food.
It is a daily practice.
You never and stress management and sleep and connection and time in nature. All of it is a daily practice, something you've got to you've got to come to every day. But I know from my own personal experience and the personal experience of my listeners is that when you start, usually people start on a real food journey, don't they? Do you find? And they're like, right, I'm going to get these inflammatory foods out of my diet, and then you start to realize that seemingly innocent foods in your fridge are actually not what they used to be. Like you reference to your grandma's custard, like, hang on a minute. My grandma didn't put all of those things. What are those things anyway into the food? And then it starts to get a bit stressful, but then you start to realize that you can buy the grass-fed meat, you can shop at the local farmers markets, you can eat in season. You start to feel a whole lot better. And then you come across somebody like you, and then you're like, oh shit, this toothpaste that I'm using is causing me dramas. And
sorry.
My washing up liquid. What do you mean? But is that harmful too? So, but what I love about you, when you come to you and your message is, it's okay. Like, of course we haven't had that critical thinking, because why would we? Because nobody teaches us that, it's something we've got to come across on our journey. So can you talk us through what some of the common chemicals that are found in an average household? Can you tell us what they are? And can you tell us how they affect our systems? Big question.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, yeah, I know. So don't be disappointed. I'm literally only going to focus on one. Only because with this one thing, we can achieve so much change. Because often when this one thing is in a product, many of the others are too. And by focusing on this one thing, we, for me, create the biggest change.
I'm excited.
And
I
think,
on a show.
Well, we've only got a limited time. And I think if we just string through a whole bunch of chemicals, that can make people feel like they need to look at all these things. And I really take a huge responsibility in my role as an educator to ensure our mindset, our mental health is protected as we learn these things, and don't tailspin into some overwhelm / OCD, overstressed about what's in every single little thing, because stress is going to be the biggest killer of all. Absolutely. So it's really important that we do not go there. And by taking the chance to be on your show, Helen, and just focusing on one thing, then we know there's one thing we're working on from today's interview. There's plenty you can come to lowtoxlife.com to then continue the journey on. Trust me, we've got a lot of resources. We've got a course and all sorts, but let's just focus on one today. And that is a pesky little endocrine disruptive chemical called a phthalate. And for the nerds out there who are already primed on Google to research this right now, you spell that PHTHALATES. There you go. Yes, I'm talking to you. And and I only know because I'm exactly the same. Like, oh God, I've got to write that down and I've got to look it up now. And phthalates, their job is to, in cosmetic and cleaning products and things around the home, household products, if you like, is to make fragrances last longer. They do other things. It's a plasticizer, so it can be added to plastics, like touch your computer cable right now that's got phthalates in it. Touch your plasticky, soft dog's ball that they play with in the yard. Often that's got phthalates in it. Anything quite plasticky. If your yoga mat feels like your hand needs to be pried off it, because it feels sticky, then it's probably got phthalates in it. Things like that. And rest assured, there are many phthalate-free yoga mats now. So then that can be researched with a quick Google. Mm-hmm. But yeah, phthalates are everywhere. And in household cleaning and personal care products, their job is to make a fragrance last long. So you'll know, if you like, anyone who likes essential oils out there, you put an essential oil on and you quite often think an hour later, I need another little dab. That's because it's natural and it dissipates and it's quick. And that's actually what's meant to happen. And I always like to remind people that we're also from nature, but we try and outsmart nature, and that's where we go a little bit wrong. well, we don't go wrong always, but we go wrong when we outsmart nature by thinking something like a fragrance needs to last longer, so let's put this chemical in it. Now, a phthalate is part of a group of chemicals called endocrine disruptive chemicals. And any woman out there will know how difficult it is to balance your endocrine system, your hormones, whether that be your thyroid, your sex hormones, adrenals, etc., on a good day with no exposure to anything in a hippie commune out in the middle of a field, let alone with the onslaught of things we're surrounded by today disrupting our hormones in the ways that they do. And there are a couple of ways that endocrine disruptors work. They either work to mimic an existing hormone in your body, or they block hormone production, signaling production. So, you put something like a body cream or a perfume that has phthalates in it to make that fragrance last long, because that's its job in the fragrance industry, to make a fragrance stick. Then you have this thing running around your system pretending to be hormones that are already in there. And then what happens is, well, many things can happen, but one of the things that can happen is your body can say, hey, it's okay, we're making enough of that stuff so you can stop, because it thinks it's got more than it does floating around in the body. And that's like a basic explanation of a seriously complex scientific process. And I'll share with you a couple of links to some of the best endocrinologists in the world talking about this stuff if you want to nerd out and watch a couple of lectures. It's terrifying but inspiring at the same time, because once you get a handle on just how disruptive artificial fragrances that contain phthalates can be, you then start to remove them from your home. And then guess what? You start to realize how poisonous these things are. My favorite example is when we run Go Low Tox, which is an e-course that we do a couple of times a year. In week 2, I say to people, week 3 thereabouts actually, I'll say to the group, so who ditched the fabric softener in week 2, the start of week 2, and has been somewhere else that was using fabric softener, or had a bag of hand-me-down clothes from a friend or that kind of thing, and how did you react? And people are like, oh my gosh, I never realized how toxic it was. And because phthalates leave our body quite quickly, you really notice straight away what a synthetic fragrance is and does to you. It feels so wrong. You walk into, I walked into our school fundraiser, bless us, the other day, where we had a scented candle sponsor. And scented candles are somewhere where you really experience a very high level of phthalates and exposures. And I just walked into this bathroom, and it was so lovely. I appreciated how lovely it was, this little bouquet of flowers and the little candle, and they'd done such a gorgeous job. But I just felt sick to my stomach, because it's a poison to me now. I can feel that it's not right for me. And I challenge anyone out there who hasn't ditched their scented candles that have synthetic fragrances in them and fabric softener. Those would probably be the two biggest indoor air pollutants, or maybe the reed diffusers that a lot of people have as well. You ditch those 3, just do it like a 2-week experiment. You don't need to throw them away yet if you're not convinced. Chuck them in the garage. And then just be out in the world. Walk past a scented candle shop or a boutique that's got them burning in there, or go to a friend's house when they've got a load of laundry in the dryer with the fabric softener going, the fabric sheets and all those sorts of things, and just observe how you feel. And trust me when I say it is a rude awakening, and you just then want to turbocharge how much synthetic fragrance you get out of your life. And it's as simple as going through, when you run out of your body lotion next time, when you don't freak out and throw everything out, unless you're an A-type and you just feel called to do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But if that freaks you out from a budget perspective, or just everything's happening too fast perspective, because there's those people in the world as well, and no one is wrong in the way they go low tox. It is absolutely about doing it your way. Because your way is going to be the sustainable way, the way that sticks, because you're making sense of it for yourself and your family. And then just run out of things and go, okay, going to find a better option of that now. Okay, going to find a better option of that now. In a similar way as we do with food. You know, you run out of the packet of chocolate Tim Tams and you go, okay, going to research some really glorious chocolate biscuits that we can make easily and commit a recipe to memory and get good at it, so it's no trouble at all, and we can rustle it up on Sunday nights for the lunch boxes that week. It's not hard. It's just got to be started, you know, and I think sometimes we feel like it's such a big problem, it's such a huge deal. My home is toxic. I mean, if you make a statement like my home is toxic, then yeah, it is going to feel like a huge deal. But my body lotion's run out and I'd like to try a more natural one and see how I feel. That anyone can do. So just start, basically, and just start to really raise your awareness on what things smell like. So, you know, some of the funniest things I've come up against in my own realization was just how hilarious certain fragrances sound, or certain products that sell fragrances sound. So something I used in my TED Talk last year was an air freshener example, and there's this company that has a fresh air system. And it's a fresh air system that pumps out like intermittent, fresh smelling air. And it's called Ocean Fresh. And you've just got to be honest with yourself. If you've got these products in your home, don't feel guilty because you didn't know this 5 minutes ago. So don't be feeling bad. You can't feel guilty about what you didn't know yesterday. But just raise your awareness and think, Ocean Fresh. You know what? I've been to the ocean and it smells nothing like this.
It smells like
and
seaweed
just so
and
simple. I know, exactly. And it's not necessarily something you want like pumping out into your home either. So like, but the point is it just smells like this weird fake idea that this company's had, and they've been around a boardroom and they've customer tested it in whether people liked it or not, and done all of this fake stuff to create this fake thing to pump these fake hormone disruptive chemicals into our breathing air inside our homes, when hilariously the last time I checked, a fresh air system was opening a window. Or maybe putting a fan on if you really felt like you needed to circulate a bit more air. That's a fresh air system and it's free.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's just hilarious.
So,
I heard you use a similar example on a podcast. I think you were on Up for a Chat, and you the example you were using was Spring Fresh, and you were like, what the hell is Spring Fresh anyway? And I loved it. In that podcast you suggested getting rid of fabric softeners as the best thing to do, like to start with, because the fabric softener smell can make up like 70% of the toxic load in your house, I think was the example you gave. And so I promptly threw mine in the bin, and I looked at the name just for a chuckle, and it was Amber Spice. And I was like, what is that? What is that anyway? And it's so true, really, isn't it? Because when you give a hug, actually I'm a bit restrictive about who I will hug now, because it's not just the fabric softeners, but it's also the perfumes that people wear. And then they give you a hug, and then like for the rest of the day, like you've got the smell of their perfume like stuck up your nostrils. And then you go to the public toilet in the cafe and you're just harmlessly washing your hands, and then you get it's like you're getting like from all angles, isn't it? It's like So it's really reassuring to know that we can get rid of those. Our system's really effective at getting rid of those, and just by, you know, we're not going to live in a bubble and never socialize or hug anyone again, but by opening the windows in our house and keeping our house, making those basic steps can really make such a change. And I also think it's really important to realize how those endocrine disruptors affect our thyroid. And there's lots of people listening, like me, who've got thyroid issues and adrenal issues and, you know, trouble losing weight. This could be the missing piece in your jigsaw. Even if you feel like your diet is squeaky clean, this could be the tipping point, right?
Absolutely. I mean, some of the chemicals in plastics, for example, are proven obesogenics. And actually, one of the lectures I'm going to share with you for the nerds out there, he speaks to that aspect of hormone disruption. And as you mentioned, the thyroid. I mean, where do we spray our perfumes? Boom, on our neck.
I've thought of that before.
Like, you know, and it can just be such a massive realization for people. And if you can't bring yourself to let go of that favorite perfume you've worn since you were 22, just put it on your clothing, on an arm, rather than straight to your skin on your neck, or put it a little tiny bit in the end of your hair or something as your baby step to kind of weaning yourself off it, if you do at all. And it's not a judgment thing. I don't think anyone has to do anything they don't want to do. But by the same token, if you really want to clean it up at home, to also not stress if you do get a thing on in a public toilet, because all of the good work you're doing in all other days of your life and in your home environment are what's meaning that that odd little bit of exposure is something your body is capable of detoxifying from. You know, often we overstress about things, but we forget that we've got this highly functioning, super efficient detoxification machine, most of us, and we can cope with certain amounts of exposures to things, preservatives and all sorts. The problem is we're surrounded by everything all day, every day. And it's not just, you know, one time in one public place. It's everywhere. And so I think my job, my mission is to help people realize just how much we can control, and to also feel healthy about the odd exposure, because really at the end of the day, if we're going to stress about everything once we've done our best, then stress will kill us all before anything else.
That's so true. So it really is a case of what you do for the majority of the time is what matters. And just that little extra percent, you know, a few percent is fine. And just, you know, once you start with the basics, then your body will be able to handle a little bit of toxic exposure outside of the home. So that's really reassuring to know. And I think that there's also a lot, and when I was talking to my husband about you and your message, and telling him that, you know, actually some of the products that we use, that we thought they were actually marketed as good for the planet and natural and organic, but they're not. His instant reaction was he felt very betrayed. You know, there's that like, oh really, you know, like you've been conned, and that can make you sort of feel like, oh, what's the point in even trying? This is just impossible. I thought I was doing the right thing. But that's what would you say to somebody who is experiencing that, Alexx?
Oh, it happens so often, Helen, and often like one of my main messages when we do the Go Low Tox launch period and we're talking about all the reasons that this would be useful to someone is the question around, are you being duped? There are so many labeling loopholes in terms of what one can put on the front of a packet versus what's actually going on. And people can get really had, just like you guys were. I was too. I remember using a particular cosmetic brand that, like, you know, just had pictures of the environment. Its packaging was all sort of greens and browns, and it was doing all the things to make me think that this was incredible for my health and the planet. But then there was still some petroleum-based ingredients and a hormone disruptive preservative. And, you know, I was devastated, yes, you know, because I thought I was really trying hard in those early days. So I feel you out there who have this realization, and people 3-4 days into the course start to say, oh my gosh, I thought I was green. I had no idea how much I had to learn to really definitely make an informed decision. And the informed decision comes is when not only do you know all the science, but you actually know how to read a label and get around the loopholes. So, for example, someone can put organic on the front of a packaging, or call their product something organica or organique, or, you know, like parts of the word organic in to insinuate something from the earth or natural. And unless it's certified USDA organic or Australian certified organic on the label, you actually only need to have 10% of that product be organic ingredients. The rest can be anything else, right?
Yes. Wow.
Another thing is a picture of a planet does not mean that product is 100% safe. It also doesn't mean that it's 100% trying to trick you. Let's be fair. Not everything needs to be this big conspiracy theory that people start to concoct. I like facts and I like transparency. So for me, any brand that is still now in cleaning land, for example, not putting ingredients on their labels because they don't have to, because get this, they're protected by proprietary blend because that industry says, well, we don't want our competitor copying our formula, so we're not going to put the ingredients on there. Well, hello, people are putting this on their skin and breathing it in their homes. We want to know what's in there. So if it's not in there, or if you have to go through 5 billion tabs on their website and then send a customer service email that never gets replied to, then chances are they're trying to hide the fact that they're using something less than favourable. So I guess, if you think you've been duped, it's really important to just surround yourself with the facts, learn some of the basics of what goes on and in what goes into making products and what goes on in loophole world of labeling, and just start ignoring things like good for the earth or natural or organic and all those sorts of things, unless you see the ingredient list to back that claim up, because lots of people can make claims, but the ingredient list tells the true story.
Love it. Now, just to move back to food momentarily, so if we're having a low tox, life, Alex, can we still have, I like to ask all my guests this question, what their opinion is of wine, chocolate and coffee?
Oh, okay. Look, I think there are studies that have emerged recently that say any amount of alcohol is not ideal. I think we have a cultural problem in the UK, in the US and here, predominantly white Anglo-Saxon countries, culturally, with how much alcohol seems to just be fine. And I think we need to address that. I was just speaking to a male friend who admitted to me recently that he doesn't go out with certain other male friends socially. If it's a night out, he'll do a sport thing or he'll do a daytime barbecue where there's lots of people, but he won't go out at night because he knows he'll be ridiculed for not keeping up with the rounds. Yeah, right. So I just think that there cultural issue around alcohol and how much alcohol we tend to say is okay that we really need to address. But I'm kind of tangenting there, but it's a social issue I feel super strongly about. But again, look, it's not what you do every now and then that matters so much to the overall big picture of your health. It's what you do every day. So if you find yourself polishing off a bottle with your partner every single day, then yeah, probably not a great idea. I'll never forget, as Aussies who tend to fill up that glass of wine nice and big, I'm half French though, and I happily have a quarter or half a glass of wine at a meal. And that's just kind of really common. You have the best you can afford, but you don't have much. And that's a very French way of doing things. And my hubby, then boyfriend, came with me to France and we were all sitting around the table and my uncle poured out the first bottle of wine that we were having. There was about 8 of us there. And that night, Ollie said to me, gosh, they're really stingy on the wine. Hey? I was like, they're not stingy. You're in France. This is how we drink if we drink. And I really believe it's why, you have this beautiful French paradox of health well into your 80s. And all your faculties and all the good stuff, because there's just this healthy understanding around excess. And you're not depriving yourself by not having a certain huge amount of something. You're actually just enjoying what you do have. That's the French focus, and you're savouring. And I think Anglo-Saxon culture could learn a lot from that.
Yeah.
So that's
there's a lot
me
of difference
on the
between.
wine.
There's a lot of difference between savouring that beautiful French wine and sculling, which is more Anglo-Saxon way of doing it.
Huge.
Not cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. And when I was a new mum, I remember falling into the trap of, oh, that was such a hard day. I deserve my wine. and I think I can't even remember how much I used to drink, but maybe 1 or 2 glasses, small glasses, because I'm not a huge drinker, but 1 or 2 glasses every day nonetheless. And I really caught myself. I was like, this is not good. I can't believe that I feel like I need that now. That's to me when you need to set an alarm bell around yourself, when you have a need for something that is not necessary. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like by that, like a need for drugs or cigarette, things that aren't necessary. Like you have a need for Coca-Cola. It is a completely unnecessary item. We do not need it to survive. So when we start to feel like we do need it, then there's a problem.
Yes. Yep.
And I took myself off alcohol for 3 months to recalibrate. And realized that I was drinking a whole bunch of cheap and cheerful stuff that I didn't even like the taste of. So now, for example, I don't drink wine at a function, because chances are at a function it's the red, white and beer options, and it's all, quite baseline cheap stuff. And I just don't drink things I don't like the taste of. So I think just be wise and be truthful with yourself. Have a conversation with yourself around drinks. For me, having a propensity to inflammation around histamines, I tend to do better having a gin and soda water a couple of times a week, and that would be something that I would more choose than having wine these days. When it comes to chocolate, look, it can be amazing, but if you've got an adrenal issue, just be real with yourself about why you're having that chocolate. And if you're having lots of that chocolate, and I've fallen into this trap many, many times, especially around that 3 o'clock mark, then there's actually something much more important that you need to address than whether or not to have another piece of chocolate, and that's your adrenal health. And then when it comes to coffee, for me, it comes down to genetics. Some people can metabolize coffee very efficiently and have 2-3 cups a day, no problems. Drink it at night, go to sleep, no problems. Others of us, and I'm in the latter category here, have sometimes it can be an enzyme missing from your liver, one of the CYP450 enzymes, and I'm a very slow metabolizer of certain medications, which is why I don't do well on things like anesthetic and big moments in health issues. And with coffee, 1 cup of coffee just lasts and lasts and lasts in my body, and not in a nice way. It's a wired kind of way. And I remember when I started working for myself and was freelancing in hospitality consulting, and you'd have commonly 2-3 coffee meetings in a morning, and I just started to feel like I couldn't even focus or think straight, and I was like, yes. And I couldn't get rid of it either because my body couldn't get rid of it. So I literally had to take some liver supportive herbs to start, alleviating these feelings, because I wasn't able to sleep for a couple of weeks after it sort of started to build up and not have anywhere to go. Yeah. So I think it really comes down to, again, being truthful with yourself. Does it make me feel great and actually, provide that lovely nootropic effect that caffeine can have on people and help you perform better? Then, by all means, have a cup or 2 a day and reduce it, if not cut it when you're pregnant. But for some of us who can truthfully say this just is not my good thing for helping me thrive, then just be truthful about that and just get rid of it and start to engage with some fantastic cafes that have their separate decaf grinder from the beans that are Swiss water filter processed, so that there aren't all the harsh chemicals around decaffeination that you can find in a lot of mainstream coffees, and just get to know your barista and find joy in decaf. And it can be found. I've found it for years now, and I really just don't feel like I'm depriving myself at all. And hilariously, the biggest realization I had around caffeine was that it was completely psychological in terms of its function in my day. And I still feel like I need to have my coffee to function, like for my day to start. And I drink decaf, for gosh sakes. So I challenge everybody and just say, well, maybe it's actually a lot of it's in your head.
Yeah, and
once you actually remove the
caffeine. And so maybe it's more around that ritual. This is how my day will start, with this lovely taste, and then we know it's morning and we're off. Yeah, love it. Now, I've got a couple of readers' questions before we just start to wrap up. I love a reader's question. Okay, so this one is coming from Belinda Tormaccio, and she lives, this is the kind of place you and I would love to live, in the forest. She lives off-grid down here in the south coast of WA, and she is got a question around mold. She says, what are the best natural ways to rid and protect the home?
Okay, so your number one protector against mold and mold condensation. So this is mold building up because of humidity inside your airspace rather than systemic leaks in your walls, right? Systemic leaks in your walls, there's no amount of vinegar you can use to remove them. You actually have to, just like trying to treat a chronic reflux problem with a PPI, you're never going to get to the root cause and your stomach acid issues if you just keep covering up superficially. So like mold growing out of your bathroom wall right where the taps are, you actually need to fix the leak. So I'm not going to talk about that because that's much more of a professional building biologist territory. And I urge you to get in touch with the incredible resources that Nicole Bilsma has on her Building Biology, a Healthy Home website. And she has directories and people that can come if you actually have a systemic problem inside your walls or up in your roof that's causing the mold. But for the average home, it's actually a condensation and humidity issue. And the best thing you can do is get screens on all your windows and doors so creepy crawlies don't come in, especially in WA. Gosh, you guys have the worst of it in that department. And so that you feel protected, but have that house open all the time when you're in it. Even when it's really, really cold, if you are someone who sees droplets of water on your bedroom windows in the morning and little dark spots of mold growing around your windowsills because of that moisture, then you have to open it. You just have to open it. Now, we're really lucky. We're up in an apartment where we can just leave everything open all day, every day. And in the winter, we do too, because it's just the most important thing is airflow. The second most important thing is how humid is it inside in your house. And if it's more than 55, 60% humidity, then mold can grow. And that usually starts because dust has collected around corners of rooms where you haven't vacuumed quite as detailed as you would do the body of the house or in your bathroom, let's say. And that can then, because of the general atmospheric humidity, cause the mold. So I really believe in everybody just getting a couple of dehumidifiers for their homes and running them at night in the living areas and during the day in your bedroom areas. It just means that as a baseline, you're always going to be keeping your humidity in check. On the East Coast here, we get a lot of humidity. In February, it sometimes feels like we live in the tropics, and we have them running all the time. And then in terms of spot cleaning mold, just a solution of about 80% vinegar, 20% water, somewhere around there. You don't need to be too particular. On non-porous items like bathroom tiles and things, and just clean it off, but wear a mask because 25% of us are very reactive to mold, and it can become quite toxic to us and have horrific health effects. And if you're interested in that, on my show, Low Tox Life, I interviewed the amazing Dr. Sandeep Gupta recently, who is trained in Dr. Shoemaker's mold illness protocol. So it's really important that we understand that some of us, which is why like one of you in a couple or in a family can feel fine and totally, and what do you mean there's something wrong with our house? And then someone else in the same environment but with a different genetics can be completely crippled by mold. So it's important to wear masks if you don't know that about yourself yet, just to ensure that you're not breathing it in while you're cleaning it off. Or if you feel like you might be susceptible, which is what we do, because I do have the mold susceptibility genes. My husband does any little mold spot cleaning in the bathroom. You so can easy. Add. Yeah, it is. And, you can use essential oils, clove bud, lavender, etc. But sometimes they can aggravate mold spores, and that can, when you get angry mold spores, you can end up creating new types and variants. And look, it's a super complex area. I feel like, that's why Sandeep has a 10-week course on it, for gosh sakes. But yes. suffice it to say that that you can use a simple solution of vinegar and water in your bathroom to just keep, a bit of condensation mold at bay. But if you've got deeper systemic issues, you want to fix the leaks, and then you want to support mold from growing. So preventative strategy, having great airflow, cross ventilation if you can. So like not just opening the front and back windows, but side ones as well. So fresh air gets circulated all around, and dehumidifiers.
That sounds so easy. That sounds very easy. Yeah, I love it. I can do that. I feel like I can do that. It's a very empowering message that you have.
Oh, you totally can.
And this might seem like a really dumb question, but the main problem that I have is with fruit. So a friend might give us, a big pile of lemons off her lemon tree, and we use a few, and then before you know it, oops, they've gone moldy. Is that mold as bad as mold that would grow in the corners of your house?
Well, there are lots of different species of molds, and different molds affect us in different ways. And, some molds we even have inside of us, so funguses and things, fungi, I should say. And as long as we keep populations in check, we're fine. But often food molds can contribute to an overall mold issue and harm us. So, yeah, you don't want to be eating mold, especially if you've got the mold susceptibility genes, like things like blue cheeses and aged washed rinds and things aren't going to be great for you. Might want to even stay away from mushrooms, and see, like, mushrooms can sometimes be an aha moment for healthy eaters who are still experiencing weird issues. You just take away a couple of those simple whole food fungus in our diets, and that can be an amazing change for people's health. But in terms of the lemons that go moldy, look, I am again of the opinion that we should just be really real with ourselves about how much we're going to be able to get through of something when we first get it. This is why buy two, get one free kind of stuff doesn't work in a supermarket or a farmer's market, because if you're not going to be prepared to cook that thing that week, then it's going to go off.
Yes.
And use your freezer. And if you have a garage, by all means, get a little chest freezer as well. Because what I do with lemons, we've got a friend who's got a lemon tree as well, is I just scoop out, I zest them and put all of those in a little glass container so that I've got zest to sprinkle on roast chickens and things like that, or into sauces. And then I grab all of the flesh from the inside and put that in, like chop it and then put that in a little container as well, and then add those into smoothies. When it's in the freezer, the pressure's off for a few months, and so you can actually get through things. Whereas if you leave it in your fruit bowl, then yeah, things will get moldy. And it's so funny, isn't it? The psychology is like we have that moment of denial for a couple of days where we see that it's going a bit bad, and we go, yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll use it. No, let's leave that there. I will use it. And then it goes moldy, and then we feel bad because we feel guilty that we're going to be throwing something out or in the compost. And it just doesn't need to be that way. Just, save it, but be smart and use your freezer.
Love it. And also, I think next time that Vicky, my lovely lemon giver, gives me a big box of lemons, I think what I'll do is give half of them to a friend. Did that make, and then you've got that
totally
community as well, instead of just going, you always feel when someone gives you a gift that you've got to take it, otherwise it's sort of you're ungrateful in some way. So brilliant advice.
Oh no,
brilliant advice.
Yeah, and, believer in on giving. Yeah, share the love.
Share the love. I love it. Now let's talk about your Go Low Tox course, because I know that there is like you said, there's so many chemicals to get to grips with and to get to read labels. We can't expect you to give us everything you know in one short, wonderful hour. Now, my mum is doing your Low Tox course at the moment.
Oh, how's she going with it?
She's loving it. I'm literally getting... she's loving it. So mum, and I actually call her Mam. So that's how we say it in the north of England. So Mam's in the north of England. She's in her 70s. And still, like, I always think that, I hear from some of my clients, like, I'm 60. Is it too late? Have I left it too late? And the answer is no, it's never too late to make some changes. And mum's, like, everything that you said, she's onto it. She's
bless.
Doing
awesome.
It. And she's sending...
Hi, Mum.
Hi, Mum. Hi, Carrick. So she loves it. So, and it seems like a really comprehensive course. Mum was saying that you have certain days where you do things, and there's days off to integrate and get the hang of things. So if we wanted to do your course, how could we find that?
So the best thing to do, I'll send you the link because we have the wait list up now for the next round. And the best thing to do is pop your name on there and just start making a few changes in the interim, because it's going to be a couple of months before we run it again. But trust me when I say there are 17 categories that we go through of everyday life, right from fashion, mold, dust, right through to all the personal care, cleaning, laundry, and everything in between, children, detoxing, face, nails, hair. Oh, I mean, I could go on. And because, I've been building on the course, it's going to be our 10th round, the next round, and now we're into our 4th year. Because we've been building it, we work on it for a solid month in the lead up of every round, full time, 2 of us, updating things, adding new resources, adding new research, adding new categories of types of products. So we've now got hair down to curly, straight, oily, dry, and all of the different types, so that people don't have to waste time trying a billion natural things either, and waste money as well, getting to what is going to be really good for them. So that's what I'd do. I'd just pop your name on the wait list so that you're the first to know about it when it comes up, and join us in February.
Sounds awesome. And Mum said there's people on there who have done an earlier round of what you've done, but are back to do it again because you can only integrate so much at one time, and like you say, you're always adding to those resources, so there's always extra stuff to learn at where you are.
Absolutely. We've got totally. Yeah, it's really important I always say, and alumni always get to do it again anytime they like for $59. So it's really, really cheap.
Such a good deal.
To do a refresher. Once you've been a student before. And the reason I do that is because I recognize that you might go in and do it the first time and you've just had a child, so you're really focused on a couple of the topics around personal care and cleaning because that's what's affecting you guys right now. Mm-hmm. But then once you've come to grips with all of that, you do your refresher round and you work more on textiles and fashion and home and bedrooms and mattresses and all those sorts of things. So, and being a part of the discussion threads each time is just so valuable because it's just like the ultimate brains trust.
Yes.
And what I love about the alumni group, which, a lot of people always ask me, why don't you have a Low Tox Life chat group? There's so many chat groups online, right? Well, the reason I don't is because I can't police thousands and thousands and thousands of people every day, or afford to hire someone to do that. And what I see in so many natural living chat groups is misinformation. People with the best of intentions leading people down some of those thoughtful green products that turn out not to be quite so green. And when you join the alumni group after having done the course, everyone's got that baseline knowledge. And so no one's misinforming anyone. And if anyone isn't sure about something, they put it to the Brains Trust and say, I'm iffy on this ingredient list. Can anyone shed some light? And we have a discussion around it that is informed. And I think there's a lot of internet discussion that is unfortunately not informed. And so, that's why I don't have a general chat group where we talk about this kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the long and short of it. I think I tangented there. Sorry, guys.
I love a tangent. Now, I know you've got loads and loads of other things going on. You've got a book. You've got your Real Food Rock Stars. You've got your Preconception Ninjas. It's fantastic. And I loved in your last, I'm on your mailing list, and on your last email, you were like, and lastly, and extra lastly. And now I've really got to go now because I feel like somebody's vacuuming around my feet because I've got to get out of here. But you've got absolutely loads going on. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about that's coming up for you, Alexx?
Well, there are a couple of courses you can take anytime you like on the site, and that is Preconception Ninja and Real Food Rockstars. And Preconception Ninja, we've got quite a few women in there already. It is a course to help people in the phase of starting to think about getting their bodies in tip-top shape for making babies. And it's also for people who've experienced some issues, had troubles, had repeat miscarriages, or had failed IVF rounds, to see if there's any stones that they've left unturned in in their garnering of knowledge to give us the very best chance to make our little horizontal tango efforts to come to fruition with a gorgeous, healthy bub.
Doesn't have to be horizontal.
And I just think, no, it doesn't need to be horizontal. You're right. No judgment here. So I created that course and brought together the practitioners that I brought together for that course, because I'm not a practitioner, as you know, I'm a health coach. So I'm all about helping people make positive, sustainable change, and I like to be a conduit, and that's my skill, and we all have to stick to our skills. And the practitioners, I've got an amazing dentist in there talking about the links from oral health to fertility, because there are some really profound links, believe it or not. Wonderful Naomi Judge, who's a naturopath nutritionist, absolutely passionate about the endocrine system and getting that in tip-top shape. The wonderful Kate Johnston, who's also a naturopath nutritionist, who's really, really focused on nutrition, and everyone with their personal areas of expertise. Nicole Bilsma to talk about some of the stuff we've been talking about today, actually, especially Wi-Fi, which we didn't talk about today, and various energetic impacts that can be had with her own incredible story of miscarriage and how she overcame it by literally just moving bedrooms, which she can tell you about in that interview. And I just think, bringing these incredible minds together and then providing beautiful food plans and information and shopping lists to really help us, because it's dire. 1 in 6 couples is finding it not just a couple of months and then we finally get pregnant, but years and trauma and going through all sorts of things. And it's our human birthright to be able to conceive and to carry babies to term and to have those babies be healthy. We have everything at our fingertips to make us more able to do that. Of course, we can't promise it's going to be perfect for everybody. It's not a medical promise. I can't ever supposed to make one of those. But there's a lot of stuff we're not looking at, let's put it that way. And I wanted to create this course to help people see just how much positive impact we can have on our preconception journey to giving us the very best chance, sometimes against all odds, of having a healthy baby. And the reason it sort of came about was because people have over the years privately thanked me. I got introduced at a friend's daughter's birthday party last year. This is Alexx. She's the reason we were able to finally have B.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's their little baby girl. And I just melted, like straight on the spot, just started crying.
Oh.
And because I just realised, and that was, she'd done Go Low Tox and Real Food Rockstars, and it had just been this realisation that their bodies weren't being optimised to do what their job is to do, which is to procreate. At the end of the day, we're animals. And and if we're too stressed, or if we've got too many contaminants in our food or our personal care or our cleaning, then of course those things are going to act as barriers to our bodies doing the job they're meant to do, of course. It would be so foolish to think otherwise, So it's a beautiful course, and I really love running that one. And then Real Food Rockstars is it's for people who want to delve into the power of food, not just the power of eating from a sustainable, beautiful food system, but also the power of food as a preventative measure. And I interview an amazing cardiologist in the States who I adore, Dr. Stephen Sinatra. Helen Patterson on inflammation, the wonderful Emma Sutherland on, getting your mojo back. So many women feel blah, and food can be an incredible conduit to finding energy again and vitality. And Sally Fallon on children's health and vital nutrients for children. So many experts in that course that give us incredible information, and again, lots of good nerdy researching we can all do and chat together in the group about.
Sounds wonderful. And what about your book? When is that due to be released?
So that we've got a little while to wait yet. I'm still working really hard on it. At the time that we're recording, it's huge, hey? And, you can't just pop in and edit something and press update when it's a published book. So my perfectionist tendencies are really being challenged with this. They really are. But, it's all good and it's a journey, and I'm so grateful to be able to bring the message of going low tox and living a low tox life across your food, home, body and mind to so many more people. There'll be total strangers that we haven't even met yet in our community that are going to come across it. And that just blows my mind. It really does. So that's going to be out next year in June.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, if you want to find out more about Alexx, head to lowtoxlife.com and tune into her own podcast, and you'll find her on Facebook and Instagram as well. Alexx, thank you so much for your time today. It's been incredible. We've literally only touched the surface of all of the things that you could nerd on about. So we'll maybe have to get you back on the podcast in a few months' time. But for today,
Sounds good.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Woohoo! That was incredible.
Yay, that was a great chat. Thank you so much.
Thank
really
you
good
so
questions.
Much. Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm glad that you liked them. That was really, really incredible. I can't wait to share that one. Now, did you have a specific time that you wanted me to release this one, or are you happy just to go with the flow?
Oh, I'm happy to go with the flow. Later the better always, because then it's closer to go low tox. But if you've got something in the schedule next week and you really want to put it in, honestly, it doesn't bother me. They'll go on the wait list.
Okay, well, I was thinking maybe if you want to tie it in with the next Go Low Tox, maybe we could do it in January, because I do have a few wonderful podcast episodes to get out there. So yeah, that would work really good in the new year.
Well, let's do that then. Yeah, cool.
That sounds good. And what I'll do is once that's released, I'll send you the link and you can share that at your end and I'll share it at my end, and it'll all be great.
Definitely. And I'll send you through those 2 endocrine disrupting lectures now before I forget.
Yes, please.
And I'll also send through the Go Low Tox sales page so that you don't have to try and think about what we talked about when it gets closer to the time.
Yeah, brilliant. I'd like that. And I'll look for the Healthy Home website as well and add that in the show notes, because that was a good
for sure
as well. No, that's really good.
Yeah.
And I'd like to send you a small gift from me for being a guest on the show. So when you send me those links...
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. When you send me those links, could you just pop in your best address as well? That would be great.
Yeah, shall do.
I've got a really awkward picture of me paused. Am I frozen on your end as well or not?
Yeah. You look like a faceless Halloween monster right now.
Really
not the best.
Not the best. I know, but you're still moving, and so that's good. Yeah, I was just looking at it again. Oh my God,
that's bizarre.
That's the worst picture of me ever.
Yeah, all good. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
Well, you have a good weekend.
Yes, and you too. And I'll connect with you again soon.
Sounds good. Okay. Bye.
Bye.